The night before Jesus died, he shared a plan that no one could have imagined. Jesus said he was going to go back to heaven and would send another leader to take his place. Here's what he said. He said to his disciples the night before all this went down, he said, "It's best for you that I go away, because if I don't, the advocate, who we know as the Holy Spirit, won't come. But if I do go away, then I will send him to you, and when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth." It's the Holy Spirit, this leader that Jesus sent in his place, that helps us move from death to life. The Holy Spirit is our source for living fully alive. Welcome to session 4 of Live Fully Alive. It's in this session that we're going to learn how the Spirit changed those first disciples and how he can change us as well. Let's start by visiting the scene when the Spirit first arrived on earth. It happened in Jerusalem, a large city in Israel, just a few weeks after Jesus went back to heaven. In Acts chapter 2, we read these words. "There was a sound from heaven like the roaring of a mighty windstorm, and it filled the house where they were sitting. Then what looked like flames or tongues of fire appeared and settled on each one of them. And everyone present was filled with that new leader." They were filled with the Holy Spirit. This leader obviously wasn't a person. This new leader was the Spirit of God and filled them, mysteriously reconnecting them to God and his power to live fully alive. Again, what Adam and Eve lost in the garden when they died to living fully alive, now the Spirit has been sent to reconnect them to that. And the evidence of living a new and powerful life in these early disciples was so obvious. The first thing is they were no longer afraid. They stepped out of their places of hiding and risked their lives to tell people that Jesus was alive. Can you imagine doing that? Everyone in town knew about the execution of Jesus. Most of them had even seen it. How could these people be claiming that Jesus was alive? These first disciples were risking a lot more than their reputations, too. The authorities were doing their best to mute them. A lot of them were being thrown in jail, tortured, and some were even killed. But these people could not stop. Why? Because something in them had changed. They were reconnected to God. There was now more to life than just playing it safe. They could live life on earth the way it was lived in heaven, and they were going to go for it. And they did. Thankfully, in doing so, they showed us how it is done. And the New Testament is full of stories and letters written by these early disciples. And the stories tell the life-threatening adventures they endured, and the letters they share firsthand tell us the nature of the fully alive life that Jesus empowered them to live. Embedded in these letters are two key ideas that show how the Spirit changed these disciples. The Spirit began changing their character. That's the first one, changing their character from the inside out. But the Spirit also gave them special abilities and a calling to use those abilities to change the world. Two big words there, character and calling. The characteristics that the Spirit developed in them are compelling. They became more loving. They experienced greater amounts of joy in spite of their challenges. Their anxieties gave way to peace. They were more patient with each other. They were able to manage themselves with less effort. Their lives and their relationships in turn kept getting better, even as their circumstances became more difficult. This is living fully alive. And the Spirit is ready to partner with you to help you develop those characteristics or that character as well. Well, the second word is calling. The calling that the Spirit gave them was compelling as well. It was an invitation from God to join the mission of sharing Jesus' fully alive life with the rest of the world. These early disciples were much like us. They had families to support. They had developed certain skills and abilities to earn that support. Their lives were just as demanding as ours are, but the Spirit added something powerful to their lives. He gave them the power and the daily direction as they used their gifts and abilities to join Him in that mission. There's common skill sets were transformed into supernatural powers, and this calling gave their lives direction, purpose, and value. They had a reason to wake up every day. And this is living fully alive. The Spirit is ready to partner with you in developing your calling as well. Well, let me ask you a question that's very similar to the question I asked you in session 1. Is this the kind of life that you want to live? Do you want your character to grow like the early disciples did? Do you want to discover your calling and develop the same level of purpose that they had? Before you answer, let's tie these ideas of character and calling back to what we learned there in session 1. Do you remember how we were created in God's image to experience intimacy and influence? Do you recall the am I lovable and am I valuable questions? Well, now that they're in front of mind again, let's consider, what do you think will happen in the intimacy of your relationships as your character grows? Remember, you'll become more loving, patient, gentle, and kind. Conflict will start going down, and intimacy will start to grow. That's what it means to live fully alive. What do you think will happen to your level of influence in the world as your calling grows? Remember, you will have the Spirit guiding you and adding His power to your efforts. He will start connecting your strengths to the very real needs around you. And as you partner with Him, your selfless influence will grow. That is living fully alive. Following Jesus is trading in our cistern-filled lives for God's best. And His best isn't lacking. It's truly, truly living. It's a life that's filled with impact. And that is why the My Impact equation makes so much sense. What is this My Impact equation? It's this simple formula. Character times calling equals impact. Character times calling equals impact. We've seen it over and over again. People partner with the Spirit to start developing character and calling, and the result in their lives and through their lives is impact. And this impact is important to Jesus. So important even that it's the very first thing that He prays for when He teaches us how to pray in the Lord's Prayer. In Jesus' model prayer, the first request to God is, your kingdom come, your will be done, where? On earth, as it is in heaven. Well, check this out. Intimacy is how relationships work in heaven. Influence is how power is used in heaven. The more we develop character and calling, the more impact we have in making the world more like heaven. And if impact is Jesus' first petition, it should be our first priority. I hope this awareness is motivating to you, because it is to me. Every time I talk through this, I get more and more excited. And more than that, I hope this inspires you to action. Developing character and calling is your birthright as a person created in the image of God. Jesus came to make this transformation possible. Jesus paid the highest price He could pay to do it. And now it's time for you to respond. It's time for you to get serious in your response to His sacrifice. So what is your proper response? He tells you what He wants, so I will use His words that He left for us in John chapter 14. If you love me, obey my commandments. If you love me, obey my commandments. Resist the thief in his cisterns and love Jesus, the Good Shepherd, and embrace living. We're going to learn how we can grow in character and calling in the next session. And as usual, there's some reflection questions and a Bible engagement exercise to do. You'll also see that there are 2 other opportunities as well. You can measure your impact with the My Impact equation. And you can start developing your calling with the GPS assessment. Both are free, and the links and instructions are in the following steps. Enjoy them, and I will see you for our final session very soon.